The UK government wants to abolish trial by jury, and with it, your liberty. If you thought that the UK was dying, it just got worse. On December 2nd, Justice Secretary David Lammy from the UK Labour government announced that jury trials should be scrapped for all but the very serious offences. And if you happen to be charged with a criminal offence that only carries a sentencing exposure of up to 3 years, you face trial by judge and magistrates, not by a jury of your peers. Check out this BBC headline, which says, "Jury trials scrapped for crimes that carry less than 3 years." Maybe you don't even notice this because you're distracted by your life, but the BBC uses the past tense, even though this measure hasn't even been put to a vote in Parliament and is not even effective. Why would they do that? Why would they use these semantics to make you believe that it is a foregone conclusion and that it is too late for you to make any type of protest against this? Now, why do you think in the first place that a government, the UK government in particular, is trying to abolish an ancient right such as the trial by jury? Before I get to the real reasons, I want to explain to some of you who are not familiar with the justice system what trial by jury actually is. Many of you have already served on jury duty, or many of you have had a friend or relative who was a witness in a case, or who was a defendant in a case, or perhaps was a lawyer on a case. You should know what it is, but in short, when you are accused of a criminal offense in the United Kingdom, or in the United States for that matter, you have the right to be heard in front of a jury of 12 people, randomly selected from your county or the community where you're from. And the Crown, the prosecution, needs to prove to that jury whether you are guilty. And they need to prove to the jury needs to be sure that you are guilty. Otherwise, they need to let you go. They need to acquit you. In many countries, defendants face a judge who is perhaps appointed by the government, and they don't have those outsiders from the community who come in and who stand as that barrier between the government and the common man or the citizen. This trial has been tradition in the United Kingdom since time immemorial. We can't even pinpoint. Many say it's the Magna Carta in the 11th century, but some say it comes from the Saxons even before that. That's pretty much up to historical debate. What we know is that it is ancient, and that the government now is trying to curtail your trial by jury rights. How did this come about? Maybe you know that the Labour government commissioned a report by Sir Brian Leveson, a retired High Court judge, to look into the criminal justice system and make recommendations for reform. Well, they did just that. They paid him to do it. He came back with a 388-page report. That's too long for any man to understand. I went through the grueling exercise to read it. Let's just say he makes some benevolent and well-intentioned recommendations, like change sentencing procedures, use more out-of-court dispositions, use drug courts so that drug-addicted defendants don't be slapped into prison, but they get the help they need. And there are a couple of others good things in there, but the main thing, the Trojan horse, is that the backlog of cases is so big that people who are waiting for their cases to be heard wait for years, simply because cases have accumulated and they are listed for trial years out, that we need some drastic measure to cut the backlog. Sir Brian Leveson says that we need to get rid of jury trials to some extent because they take so long. Judges are far more efficient. They can hear it in less days. But really, what they're trying to do is take away your rights and couch it in a very benevolent proposal. The backlog is just the reason. That's their Trojan horse. So let's get to the why. Instinctively, you know why a government would take away individual rights. Before the Labour government, it was the Tory government who made a like proposal. Then, back then, the Labour government complained. Now it is completely switched around. It doesn't matter which government makes such a proposal. In fact, we all know that the Tories and the Labours, they're just one. It's just two sides of the same coin. It's the uni party. Really, it is the government, the entity, the idea of government power that slowly and inevitably tries to encroach on your private rights to extend their power. It's just a law of the universe or something. Now, why are they doing it now? You probably noticed in the past months that prosecutions under the Malicious Communications Act have increased. The Malicious Communications Act of 1998 criminalizes speech that other people find so offensive that it causes them some type of emotional harm. You could look up the law. It's a very concise and neatly written law, and it is very subjective and thereby subject to abuse. The penalty for this crime, a malicious communication, is up to 2 years. Now, if this proposal goes through to abolish jury trial for all offenses that carry up to 3 years, then that means that if you are accused of an offense under the Malicious Communication Act, then you don't have a right to be heard by a jury, but only by a judge and magistrate. Which means that if you send out a tweet that is offensive or a text message in a group chat that some people find vile, whether somebody has an issue with your free speech, whether the government of all people has an issue with something that you might say, which of course never happens, then you can't contest it and go to 12 of your neighbors and say, the government is overreaching. I have free speech rights. But they will have government judges and magistrates who will lock you up for up to 2 years without being able to go to a jury. Now, on the cover page of that report, there's a bunch of quotes that Sir Leveson puts there. And one of them is, "To delay justice is to deny justice," by William Penn. He used to be a preacher back in the days of Quaker, who founded the colony of Pennsylvania. Ironically, William Penn was tried by a jury in the Old Bailey Courthouse in 1670 or whenever, under the Convictables Act that prescribed unlawful preaching if you didn't belong to the Church of England. Now, William Penn, to test that law, preached somewhere without the proper license. He was charged, brought before the Old Bailey, tried by a jury. The trial judge instructed, in summarizing the evidence, the jury to convict him because he was guilty as charged, and indeed he was guilty as charged. William Penn, nevertheless, in his defense, stated that he's entitled to an acquittal because he has those inalienable rights that you can preach whatever you want in this country. They acquitted him. The judge sent all the jurors to jail because they acquitted him against the evidence. Now, one of those jurors, Edward Bushell, contested his imprisonment, and the higher court, in what was known as the Bushell's case, that all the law students in this country study, maintained that juries can acquit based on their conscience, no matter the evidence that the governments bring. This is something that is so intrinsic to the English way of life that jurors can acquit according to their conscience when they think that a law is unjust, whether they think that there's a selective prosecution going on. And this is precisely, by the way, we call that jury nullification or perverse verdict. And this is precisely what any government will have an issue with. They don't want the jury to stand between the government and the individual citizen anymore. So, having heard all of that, I want to ask you, what are you doing about it? Is this Keir Starmer, who can't even throw a cross jab, is that really your leader? Is that somebody you would follow into battle? Just look at this gif here. Look at this ridiculous guy. Are you even angry about hearing this news? That they're just trying to take away ancient rights that all of your forefathers have held? Are you even complaining to your neighbors, to your local councillors, to your MP? What are you doing about it?